What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Hollywood Already Did It, your movie podcast for remakes, sequels, requels, and everything else that gets redone, and why we keep doing this. As always, I am your host, Blake Schultz, and with me is Terrence Tatum.
Hello, everyone.
And this week saw the release of the long-troubled, multiple writers, multiple production delays after delays after delays of Borderlands, Lionsgate's attempt to launch a franchise off of the semi-popular 2K games Borderlands from the, I think, early 2010s is when those all came out. The loot box shooter game, a little bit before hero shooters were popular. Run around with your friends and get loot and a violent onslaught of fun times. And here we are. Another in the list of video game adaptations in a year and couple years where we see great ones from Detective Pikachu to The Last of Us to Fallout to Super Mario Brothers. And this one will not be joining those ranks. This harkens back to the days of Doom and Blood Rain and Double Dragon and Street Fighter, and a time where, man, we got those visuals right. That Street Fighter looked correct, and it felt so wrong. So let's get into it. Terrence, what did you think?
Are we sure that Uwe Boll didn't have anything to do with this? Because he was crapping on those video game movies for a while there. Yeah. So this cast is stacked, which does not make sense with how stacked this cast is for this movie to be as soulless as it is. It's doing all the beats and it looks like it should be Borderlands. It looks like it should fit into all that, but it is just devoid of any type of heart and or soul. It looks like someone, I think you and I said this while we were watching it, it looks like someone watched all the Guardians movies. It was like, cool, I know what to do, and then just went to shit the bed for the next 20 minutes to write a script. Because that's all this is a 20-minute script, which sucks because I do know that the original version of the script, Craig Mazin, who did Chernobyl and Last of Us, was the original script, and that script is what sort of got greenlit and attracted all of this cast. And then Eli Roth came in as the director. It's like, cool, that's a nice script. How about I throw it all away? And he did, and then this is what we got. And unfortunately, it is a story that does two things that just annoy the hell out of me. One, characters that start from the very beginning and end and have no growth at all. They are the exact same way that they were from the beginning of this movie to the end of this movie, which makes it pointless for us to go on this journey, this exercise with them. The second is that each of these scenes probably has about 2 minutes of exposition. That's just an exposition dump to enter the scene. And it is one of the most annoying things that I have ever seen. Like, it's for the first 40 minutes, it's literally every scene that we go into, exposition dump, let's exposition dump. And no one actually has honest to goodness conversations or dialogue with each other. It's just piece. And it's just a poorly done script, which uses really talented actors in poor ways. Cate Blanchett and Ariana Greenblatt, they're both doing the best that they can. It's just this script is not doing them any services. As a person who I'm not as familiar with this game as I am with a lot of other gaming properties, so I'm going in this just as from film side. But I do know that there's some people like Kevin Hart was sort of miscast, and his character is supposed to be this big towering person, and then you pick Kevin Hart, which is fine. But Kevin Hart is the straight man in this. So he's not really being funny either. Jack Black is doing the most of the funny lifting as the little robot voice. And so I just don't know what was the point of having him cast and sort of mishmashing all of this. Like, it all comes together in this soup of just why. And for a person who has thought that the video game properties were starting to turn on the good side with Fallout and Last of Us, even to a lesser extent, Uncharted sort of worked. That had moments that worked. How do we get back here to these like 90s to early 2000s era of video game movies is beyond me.
Yeah, that is a great question. And I think part of that is because this originally, like, the CEO of Gearbox, I think, had a meeting in 2011, so about 2 years after the first game and a year before the second game, to first start talking about doing this with Avi Arad. And then we were going to have the R-rated one in 2016 that went away. And then Eli Roth showed up in 2020, and then it was delayed again and delayed again. So I think this is a case of the DNA of an older time released now. And It's interesting because I'm going to kind of use Dungeons and Dragons as my template for a well done adaptation,
Mhm.
and even Fallout as something that was like, hey, there's more lore here than there is plot. And that's always how I felt about Borderlands. I played like the first two. They're fun if you have friends, but it always felt very like, here's the planet. It's rich with minerals. There's an evil corporation. There's another corporation. There's this guy, Jack. Go forth and conquer. Get your friends together. Get as much loot as you can. There's a vault. There's something in it. There's another vault. There's something in it. And it's very interesting to have a game that's so like capitalism is bad, but also it's what makes this game work. Would you like to buy some loot boxes? Um, which is interesting. And there were so many other, we did Tales of the Borderlands to kind of add more plot and story and character. And so it's there, but it is way more about the style and the look. And I think Fallout and Dungeons and Dragons are similar. There's so much story in Fallout, but there's so much story you can ignore if you want. You don't even need to do the main story at all if you don't want to. It's oftentimes the least interesting part. And for them to then kind of build in that world these three great characters that all had the right look and feel and really kind of understand the deeper themes in it of like how the world got here, why it's sort of stuck in this quasi futuristic 50s, what we're dealing with, what everybody in society is dealing with, how the vault feels about what their role was and how the actual world relates to it. And Dungeons and Dragons has a similar thing of we're going to take these archetypes of characters and we're just going to tell a story with them. It'll be fairly go get the thing, but the charisma and the fun and the imagery you're seeing is going to hook you in. And Borderlands has such a similar task at hand.
Mhm.
And the first thing that they do is go, all of these games have been rated M for mature. Let's not do that. So you miss out on a lot of the insane swearing, the dismembering of limbs, the explosions, the blood. The cover of those games is someone shooting themselves in the head.
With the brain matter flying out of the other
Right.
side.
Like
Yeah.
it's so embedded in it that everyone's insane and everyone's violent. It's a world of Deadpools go nuts.
Mhm.
And then to sort of water all that down and then sort of try to take these archetypes, but instead of really being like, well, what is a bounty hunter in the context of this world? Just having her say she's a bounty hunter isn't really enough. And we try to do the show of it. She shoots everybody in there and we have the person applaud. And it still just feels hollow because it feels so much like what they're trying to do is be like, see, look, she's like our Star Lord and our
Mhm.
Rocket Raccoon and our Drax. And everyone feels that way. And so when you even get to her meeting the girl and meeting Lilith, who just shows up and is like doing her best Harley Quinn Joker knockoff, it all feels like we're copying a copy of a copy. And these other shows and movies seem to avoid that by really hearkening into what makes their world fun. And I think when we adapt video games, we need to remember like what makes the game fun. Because
Yes.
it's the same reason that the Mario Brothers movie worked, but felt a little hollow too, is because like what makes Mario fun is running and jumping and the colors and the platforming and the
Mhm.
challenge of that. And what makes Sonic fun is the speed. And both of those work when we're in that part of it. And you're like, oh, this is
Right.
great. I'm like watching what makes this thing fun. And the fun of Fallout is building your character and getting the power armor and getting these weapons and seeing all the parts of this world. So when we get to see it through the eyes of someone naive, it works really well. And
Mhm.
when Dungeons and Dragons is fun to sit down with your friends and build a story and be these characters and then wedge those characters into weird situations. So when you have a bard who has to walk in to distract people and play a song, you're like, this is great because it's the same weird bullshit that we
Yeah.
would have done to roll a 20. And then you get to Borderlands and you go, well, the fun here was getting online with my friends and everything being bloody and chaotic, but it's still a cartoon. So it's not really like gross Gears of War violent or like over the top gratuitous.
Right.
This doesn't feel over the top or gratuitous or like a cartoon. It feels like someone went, this could work the way Guardians worked and missed all the fundamental things that made it work.
Yeah.
Because even Guardians 1 has, at least in my opinion, such a bland villain and is such a like, we have to go get the shiny rock script that it only works because of these characters and the weirdness of it all.
Correct. Yeah.
And no one here is like that weird or insane
or
And
different from each other
yeah, and
because they
everyone
all sort of
knows.
read together. Yeah, they bleed together as one big character. It's like I can't decipher one from the other.
And there's no one new to the world. So instead of getting the moments you get in Guardians where Gamora gets to sit down and be like, you don't know who Thanos is, Star-Lord. You don't know what the Power Stone does. You don't get to go to the Collector and get the exposition there. It has to be like said at you as if she's recording this somewhere,
Correct.
which sort of immediately gives you this like weird disconnect from it.
Yeah, it's just an exposition dump, and I'm like, I'm no longer in this world because you're talking at me instead of less living in this world and let me seeing it unfold.
And there's a lot of moments where a voiceover works, right? Like Fight Club, it works very well because we are so in his thoughts and it's
Mm-hmm.
so heady. And like that's the point of view. And it doesn't really work here because it doesn't really feel needed. Like you could have just opened on the spaceship and Kevin Hart saving her. We didn't need this long monologue that then kind of tries to end silly. And it's like they
Yeah.
couldn't really tell if her monologue should have been the like, here's what this world is, and it's very serious. Or if she should have been like, fuck this whole planet, it sucks, and I never want to go back. Wow.
Yeah.
So you never really know if I
The
should be like
tone,
laughing at the threat or taking the
yeah,
threat
the
seriously.
tone is so unclear because the threat is told to us to be very serious, but they play it for laughs and it never really jives together. And because we, to your point, have sort of played softened this from an R-rated thing, it's living in this real sort of vanilla world the whole time where like the colors and everything, like it looks like that, but it feels like we're in a muted version and like no one's really going for it, which is bizarre considering Eli Roth is the director. Like that's just those that doesn't make sense because he usually goes for broke.
And it's interesting because you then kind of get into like, who is this for? And you do have
Yeah.
Eli Roth who does things like Thanksgiving and these insane horror graphic movies. So
Yeah.
it on paper, it's such a good fit. And this cast, everyone in it is awesome. Like every part of this movie should work. It just feels like at some point they were like, I don't know, we should probably try to get a big 4-quadrant franchise
Hmm.
because Lionsgate kind of needs one with Hunger Games winding down. And so we just didn't really go for anything. Like there, it's such a riskless,
Yeah, there
riskless
yeah, there's no
story.
stakes on anything from the story, from the characters. No one makes a definite decision and to say we're going to push it this way, and it just feels very to our point. You said hollow, I said shallow. It's a soulless thing, and it just feels like, hey, this is just a property that somebody tried to make some, and never, no one here really understood the assignment. And granted, Borderlands, because it is an open box and open world, there aren't really character things. But that means, to your point, like Dungeons and Dragons, you can make this whatever the hell you want to within this world. You guys just chose not to.
Yeah. And it is, it's interesting too, because it's harder to find like video game sales or how popular something still is. But we're like almost 10 years away from even the third game's release,
Mm-hmm.
I think. Yeah, 2019. So not 10 years away, but it's like 5. Still a good amount. And like both of those games on Steam that I just found still get about like 5 to 7,000 players a day, which isn't bad, but I don't know that it's go sell a tentpole movie on fanship alone good.
It's a niche of a
Um,
niche. Yeah.
right. Like it's
Yeah.
there, but clearly that audience either didn't want this, didn't show up for it, or reviewed it poorly because not only is it getting like panned critically and audience wise, it also is making an abysmally low amount at the box office on a weekend that's like what, the fourth for Twisters, the third for Deadpool Wolverine,
Third
the
for Deadpool.
first for It Ends With You.
Yeah.
And It Ends With You should have split pretty well and got into older females, younger
Mm-hmm.
females. And this should have then gotten us. And it just feels
It
like,
didn't.
and it didn't.
This is very much this movie plays or should play to the audience that's seeing Deadpool. So some of that Deadpool number, like technically It Ends With Us should be number one because Deadpool should have split and some of this should have come to Borderlands. It didn't. Some of that might be because the reviews were so poor, and some of it might be because this isn't a property that is as well known as Deadpool is now. But with this cast, you would think that they would have promoted this and like, hey, we're gonna pump the hell out of this thing and put this everywhere. But clearly, they also knew what they had, and like, we're not really gonna put these guys in front of this.
I had that thought. I was like, all right, so no one's showing up on Hot Wings. No one's doing
Yeah.
surprise theater stuff. We're not really doing the TikTok push that we saw with like Bad Boys and
Hmm.
Deadpool. And granted, those are also good movies with bigger IPs. So it's like, it's not quite apples to apples, but even like Twisters had a bigger push. And it is like,
Yeah.
oh, clearly they just wanted to save some of this money. Cause I know
Correct. Because
that
I think
they're
you're already spending 110 on the budget. They're like, we're not putting marketing dollars into
another
this.
30, 40 on
Correct.
marketing.
Yeah.
And they're doing that weird thing where they're like, well, we recouped 60% already with like pre-sale international tickets. So this like 8 million domestic and this 7 million international is like, and it's like, here's the thing though, guys, if you get into like the sport of movie going, if you get into the like, my movie beat you at the box office and my team, whatever, you spin this however you want. I don't
This is,
care.
yeah.
Recoup your losses. Like I fine. Recoup them. I'm glad you did because there's too many layoffs in the industry as it is. But
Correct.
like, you can't sit here and pretend that this
This
is
is
anything other than a loss.
a bona fide
Like,
loss. Yeah. Like there's no way to sugarcoat this. Sorry.
this took so, and it should have been such a layup of a movie. I
Yeah.
at least maybe not box office wise, but quality wise, I was like, what a easy layup. What an easy R-rated, crazy, bombastic action, fun, snarky bullshit. Go. This should have
I
been
feel,
the Suicide
I
Squad
feel,
cranked up.
yeah, I feel like if you told most audiences that we're going to have Kate Blanchett being a badass bounty hunter, you've done a lot of your legwork right there. And somehow this is what we got.
You've got half the cast of Jumanji. You've got Jamie Lee
That's true. I forgot.
Curtis.
Yeah, you got both of them. Yeah.
You've got Jack Black, Kevin Hart, Jamie Lee Curtis, Kate Blanchett. You've got everyone there. Eli Roth is directing. It's such a crazy thing to look at.
Yeah.
And it's one of those beautiful things too, where it's like everyone's gonna like spend a while analyzing this, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
people younger than us are gonna get online and be like, well, it looked bad.
Yeah.
Like
It
it's
will.
it's it's so funny how many comments I'm already seeing where they're like, yeah, the trailer sucked. And it's such a good example of this summer has been the narrative of like it's dying. And I'm like, the theater isn't dying. Your audiences are smarter.
They're
Your
right.
movies are expensive, and your
They're
audience saw
sniffing
a
out.
trailer and went, that looks like a Guardians of the Galaxy knockoff.
Yeah.
Bye.
They're
Like,
sniffing out crap. They're like, right, what did I see? I saw someone said this is Guardians of the Galaxy from Timu. Like that's what this
yeah.
was. I was like, yeah, you're not wrong. That's what this felt like. And it people sniffed that out and like, nah, I don't want any parts of that. Which yeah, I think our audiences are getting smarter and they're getting a lot more choosier with what they're choosing to see.
And they're
It
not,
ends with us is a very specific audience that it's hitting, and it made $50 million. Like
and
a
it hit.
problem.
Right.
Yeah,
And it
it did what
worked.
it's
That
supposed to do.
audience
Right.
liked it. It's reviewed
Right.
well. You've had Blake Lively doing her thing. Like
Yeah.
that's been a very good example of like, see, look, guys, like you can do this.
Yeah.
Y'all just didn't do this. Like
Correct.
it's I love it. I love when people are like, but why do we think this failed? And it's like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Like it's not 2008 anymore. It's not 1996. You can't just, and we now have so many game adaptation options that even the gamer audience is now like, yeah, cool. You can't keep wheeling out bullshit
Right.
in front of us. There was a while where you could.
There was a point in time like Max Payne's finally getting a movie. I'm going to go see it. It ends up being crap, but you're like, well, I don't know if I'm in the next chance I'm going to get a video game property. Now, Twisted Metal, there's a BioShock being made. Like there's something coming from everybody that you're like, I don't need to waste my time on that.
And it's good. And people are figuring it out. Like
Yeah.
I think I said on our podcast years ago where I was like, well, eventually the comic book stuff will fade down and then they'll figure out the video game stuff the same way that like the Superman and Batmans of the 80s and 70s aside, you had a lot of garbage until we got to Blade, and you had a lot of garbage after Blade.
Post-Blade, yeah.
Like, and even now, like it's, you know, it's not all perfect, but you eventually got somebody in there who is like, I understand the character of Iron Man, and I understand the character of Spider-Man and Captain America, and it doesn't all have to look perfect.
Right. I'm going to put my best foot forward. I'm going to put quality in it. And like, they all don't have to be the same. And that's what I think the gaming stuff is true. Like they're all over the place. Like Twisted Metals has made it a comedy. It worked. It somehow made it work. You can do whatever you want with these properties because with the games, you are a little bit more, it's a little bit more control as to where the decision of the genre goes because the gamer sort of makes that decision or what the game is. So like I love that you get these creative things with like even Uncharted. Casting wasn't the best, people didn't like it, but it still had the heart of what Uncharted sort of
I had a
felt
great time with
like. Yeah,
Uncharted.
like it still felt like that's what that was supposed to feel like. And so I think the biggest piece of all of these gaming ones, though, similar to how we say with Kevin Feige with the comics, is that you have to have people associated with this who actually have an invested interest or care about the games. If they have something that they know the knowledge, and I have a snarky feeling that this one nobody knew. Craig Mazin probably was the only person who did, and they removed his script, and he also removed his name. He's like, nope, I don't want to be a part of this.
Yeah. And what a good person to have on that script. Like it's
Right.
just so like all you had to do was make like a campier Mad Max. Like it's not, I don't know. I feel like this should have been such an easy, like it's Guardians meets Mad Max, go. Like,
No. Yeah.
I don't know. It's not good. It really is
No,
like, it's embarrassingly bad. It
it
like
is.
every now and then I want to be like, well, we should find the thing that works. There's nothing in this.
There's nothing that works in this.
And it's crazy to me that I just feel like sometimes we forget that things are fun and should be fun. And I feel like when you have a property like Borderlands that is ultimately so like here it's fun for these 5 reasons. Go make the movie fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that's all you got to do. Like even like Last of Us, which is so dark and depressing and sad, is a fun game in its own way. And the show got that.
Mm-hmm.
It got the heavy shit and it got the fun stuff. And it's not that, well, I guess it is hard because not everybody can do it, but like it's not that hard to at least fundamentally be like, hey, is this fun? Am I having fun right now? Like,
and that's the biggest piece, because with both Fallout and Dungeons and Dragons, I have a smaller border of entry because I don't play Dungeons and Dragons, and I did not play Fallout, although I'm going to start now. But I didn't play either of those games, and or board games. So me going in, I'm going in just as a moviegoer, and both of those I had a lot of fun. Like they got me hooked to the point where both of them, less to Dungeons and Dragons because that's a very time consuming thing, but both of them I have interest to be like, I'd like to go play and be a part of this world now. That's what you're supposed to do. This movie does none of that. I now want no parts to be anywhere near Borderlands.
Yeah, I think one of the most exciting parts about Fallout was seeing it do really well, and then everyone be like, "Oh, everyone's like buying the games and playing," and it's like, look at that, and it's like, yep, that really is the goal that didn't even always translate with comic books. Like there wasn't always a huge like Iron Man's great, go buy Iron Man comics. So it really is impressive when a game can come out and do that. I was hoping it would happen with Castlevania when that show was on Netflix, and I was like, here we come, more Castlevania stuff, and they were like, Simon. No, we're not doing that. And I was like, no, fine. Like, but yeah, it's interesting. I think they have to pay attention because I think the Metal Gear Solid movie and even the BioShock movie are now in this same boat where I'm like, okay, y'all started developing this when the bar was a little different and when the expectation was a little different. So like, I hope you guys are looking at what's working and what's not and making the changes you need to change.
BioShock 1 makes me nervous because they just sliced that budget in half, which
might
of all the properties, that might not be the one to do it on, but you might get to
I think
story. You might get to focus the story a little bit better.
I think it's exactly what might work for it. That is almost where I'm like, yeah. As long as you can get the water and these bathyspheres to look fine, get that budget down. I don't want a big, bright, incredible, like it's supposed to look dark and dingy. Do it like Alien. Go do it like Alien. Like
that's how it should be.
Like a part of me was, everyone was so nervous, and I was like, yeah, good. Because you know what? That's a video game where you're one dude and there's no one else talking to you except you're picking up audio tapes and just running into monsters. So like, so good. Like, I'm still so excited and so nervous. I just don't want them to hurt my baby.
No, that's a close one to me. I spend way too much time on those BioShock games. Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. There's a lot. I'm the same way with Metal Gear. I'm like, that's one where I'm like, get that budget higher. That one needs to be up.
Yeah.
Get David Hayter to write it. He did X-Men and X2. Get him to do it.
I feel like the biggest property that they have not touched that like should have been done by now is Gears of War. Like, I don't know why we have not done that. I think that we missed the great window of that.
I think that was on the slate, at least when Microsoft had their weird Xbox One is going to be a multimedia. We have the Halo show and the Gears of War show. Zelda's the other like layup that I'm now like, okay, cool. It's with Sony and it's some of the producers from Borderlands and it's the directors of Planet of the Apes. So
fine. This will be fine.
I mean, here's the thing. If people are looking at Borderlands and be like Avi Arad, they're inherently incorrect because that guy has produced so many things that are incredible.
Some are hits, some are like
Yeah.
I know he gets the bad name, but that's not always accurate.
No, his name is on every X-Men movie. It's on every
Correct.
Blade movie. It's on every Spider-Man movie. It's on so many things. That we'll see. it's
Yeah.
it's another one that I'm like, you guys both have a lot of space to play and not a lot of space to play. Do it correctly and then make Majora's Mask and then make that perfect. I don't ask for a lot, just perfection in every area that I expect it to be in. So
yeah.
But I think that's the show, guys. So stick with us, subscribe, leave a review, hit up the YouTube channel where Terrence has all of our reviews for TV shows and trailer reactions. And then we're also on Twitter, Threads, Instagram, all of it at Hollywood ADI. TikTok is there. All of these things where we're not very active, but probably should be more active on them. I just hate it. I hate all of it so much. So it's
social media, but
so just share the podcast so that I don't have to do all that. That would be fantastic. I'm at, as always, Blake, and Terrence is at Terrence Tatum, and we will see everybody next week, I think, as Alien Romulus.
Aliens, yes.
Great. All right. Later.
Later.